Hi, it's been a while. I did my last Daniel Weekly like July 1st, and today is August 26th, almost 2 months ago. Never mind, I think I remember how to do this. I feel a bit rusty, but let's just go. Before I left, in the start of the summer, I was talking about the HTTP workshop in Münster, Germany, that I was going to attend to, and I attended there, and it was really awesome. I blogged every day, 4 days, so I have a lot of details in the blog, and there was this official report that was posted afterwards too, that you can read up all details. There was a lot of discussions about HTTP 2 and HTTP or today, of course, and so on, and also a lot of ideas of what to work on, like going forward, what we can do with HTTP, like HTTP 3 or independent of versioning, just things to improve in the protocol space. Really fun. Oh, right, and I also, of course, I blogged about it already, but I got this t-shirt by this company, 3Scale. It was fun, just because I mentioned curl on the t-shirt. I am going to talk about curl tonight at Google here in Stockholm. They have the series called Google Tech Talks. They're not really related to Google stuff, but they're tech stuff, and curl is sort of techy. So I'm going to be there tonight. It's fully booked since forever. So that'll be fun. I think and hope and actually believe that there will be a video of the talk. So I'll keep you posted. So in case you don't know what curl is, you can learn all about it in my talk. So it's going to be a variation of a curl talk I've had before, and you probably, if you see this, you're nerdy enough to know most of those details anyway already. So well, okay then. Since I mentioned talks, then I'm talking tonight, and then I'm going to in September is pretty empty on my schedule, but then in October I'm going to speak at ApacheCon in Budapest. I'm going to speak at GoTo conference in Copenhagen and at the Velocity conference in New York. So it's going to be a couple of occasions where you can listen to me, and I'm going to talk about HTTP 2 in all those places, and then I'm going to talk about HTTP 2 at the Dev conference in November too in Malmö, Sweden, and curl and HTTP 2 talks. I'm also kind of pondering on submitting a talk for FOSDEM 2016 again. Again FOSDEM, not 2016 again. But they haven't really opened up for that, so we'll see. There has been some, since it was so long ago since I did in a video, so there of course have been a lot of activities in the curl project and all over the world, of course, but we did a release of a curl 7.44.0 that we released August 12th, like that's 2 weeks ago, and I would say it was a pretty good release. There haven't been any big problems or revelations since then, so people seem to be happy. I would say the biggest changes we introduced in 7.44 was that I implemented support for HTTP 2 push, so that the server can actually push more resources to the client than the client originally asked for. So you ask for resource A, and the server can respond with resource A and B and C and D and E and whatever. Sort of interesting technology, and I know that I have users who are interested in it, so we'll see what happens with that. I also, we did some other minor things. I added a code of conduct document to the curl source tree, basically saying what I kind of assume or how we work in the project. Nothing new, just basic common sense things like that apparently isn't always common sense. So if you're in doubt how to behave in general in an open source project, you can read up on that, and then you'll know. We also had another minor, I would say minor because it's rather minor, SSL TLS option that was added primarily for the WinSSL backend to avoid the revoke checks, because apparently at some times in some use cases it causes problems when it uses that built-in functionality, the default functionality. That was about that. When it comes to changes, then we of course had a big chunk of bug fixes. We actually had 56 bug fixes. So basically we're keeping the pace. We're having roughly one bug fix a day on average or something like that, which I think is pretty good. So that's it about 7.44. We're now working with 7.45, of course, the next one, and we're already adding changes. So it'll become 7.45. News for this release. Well, I don't have to mention that now. We can take that at another, like in another episode when we're actually reaching release. But for example, we're working on allowing curl, both libcurl and curl, to set a default protocol. You know, when you're adding a URL with curl without the protocol part, no protocol : / thing, just a host name. And hostname and the remainder of the URL, curl will sort of guess or assume what protocol you're actually talking about, and now you can actually make curl assume something better or something more in the way you like it. Like you can make it use HTTPS by default, for example, instead of trying HTTP and stuff like that. That's so far one of the bigger changes, which isn't really big, it's really tiny. And we're also adding another subtlety. We're fixing the problem where we have this function in curl when you can connect to a site and then you can extract a socket. Like if you write your own program and you want to just use curl to connect to the site using curl's authentication support and whatever, or go through Proxy or whatever, and then you extract the socket and you go on and play with it on your own. And that socket extracting part, the curl get info last socket, it didn't work with Win64 for some portability reasons, because the socket type in Windows is really weird. And weird in that sense that it is larger than a long, because a long isn't that big in 64-bit Windows. So we're fixing that and some other related stuff. More about that in another episode, I guess. I also wanted to mention, I blogged about it. It's been such a long time. I'm forgetting what I've done. I mentioned in the previous episode, I believe, that I added HTTPS links to downloads for curl, so you can actually download curl over HTTPS, but the actual download page and the entire curl website is still HTTP only, clear text, which is not ideal. It's actually pretty bad, and I intend to, and I want to have it HTTPS only, really, and I want to have it HTTP2 as well. But there are some other obstacles that, like I have a busload of sites on the same machine, so I want to fix the HTTPS problem for all of those sites at the same time, like 12 sites or whatever it is, 15, 20. So I'm waiting for the Let's Encrypt effort to take off, and then I want to go using Let's Encrypt for all those sites at once. And then once I take the step to HTTPS, then I can finally fix HTTP2, so that it'll work with all the browsers and so on. And I have some ideas on exactly how that's going to happen, but I need HTTPS first. And now, unfortunately, the Let's Encrypt takeoff date was postponed again until November, I believe. So we're still like this. So therefore, I'm only linking to HTTPS content from the download page. And I have these. I have the download packages signed with my GPG key too. So yeah, is not ideal, but it's been working like this for 18 years, so maybe we can hang on to this method just a couple of more months or half a year or whatever it'll turn out to be. In Firefox, I've been working to. I'll blog about this to explain it further, because this is a rather, I would say, complicated area. But I've been trying to. Okay, first of all, I've tried to, where I have worked on getting some sort of hash or identifier for your current network situation. That is basically all your networks that you're seeing right now, like all interfaces with their network IP addresses, sort of basic, something like that. So that you would, if you're sitting at home, or you're set up your laptop at home, or you set up your laptop at the work office or the coffee shop or airport, we'd recognize that they are different, and we would get another hash checksum, and we'd know, because as it turns out, and then we would use that information to act differently. Perhaps we could use different caches to make sure the caches were separate for each network location, or we could even separate cookies for each network location, or whatever, just to make sure that you can't pollute stuff from in one network and bring that pollution onward to the next network location. But it turns out that I can't really figure out a good way to do this, because users really aren't used to that sort of, if you log in to a site at work and you bring the same laptop running the same browser instance and you bring it to the next network, of course you want to stay logged in, and of course you want to keep your cached stuff. So I haven't figured out how to do that really. I mean, the obvious fix for this is to use HTTPS from the site, since then there's not a problem, but for HTTP sites it's an obvious pain. So I'll blog more about that and how these cross-network web stuff can be, I mean, how you can actually attack your browser that way. HTTPS everywhere. That's the way forward. I've also been fighting more. I've worked in Firefox for a long time on online-offline detection and networks change detection. So to detect that actually, wow, now your browser has actually moved network, so it's in a different network now. And if you're in a different network, suddenly we need to verify that the connections that we have are still working, and we might need to flash a couple of caches, like the DNS cache and some content caches and some other info that we keep that are valid for just the current network situation. So, and it turned out then that I did some mistake in the big, I don't remember exactly when, but anyway, when I was debugging this, I noticed that on Linux it didn't work. So I noticed that I used the wrong API, or used an API wrongly, so it didn't really start the helper thread that I wanted. And when I fixed that, kicked the thread so they started properly and was running and detecting network changes. Bam! Of course, there turned out to be some users, I mean a certain amount, rather many actually. For them, it just detects changes all the time. And detecting changes all the time then and saying, oh, network change, flash this, restart that, it causes a miserable browser experience. And it actually broke the Spotify web player, and it broke Google services for Firefox nightly on Linux. So yay for breaking stuff. No, that was kind of sad, and I haven't figured out why. It works perfectly for me, for all my Linux boxes. This method works really good, but apparently for some it doesn't work. So I'm still struggling to figure out why. What's different to them, and why can't I do it this way? So I'm going forward with that. I also mentioned I had some HTTPS proxy work with curl. That means talking HTTPS to the proxy and then talking sort of HTTPS through so it'll become TLS over TLS. And I have a branch in Git with that work, and that has sort of stalled because it turned out to be a rather massive work. No thanks to us supporting 11 different TLS libraries. So when the guys brought this functionality, which I love, it broke the build for all the other TLS libraries than OpenSSL. So I started to, I fixed the GNU TLS build, but there's like 8 other builds that are now broken. So I can't merge that work until I have fixed the other TLS backends, at least almost fixed. So that is still pending. And of course, as time goes by, it'll now get a lot of merge conflicts if I try to merge it or just rebase it. So a lot of work. And I'm still having all the other, maintenance and all the other patches going in all the time. So I'm not sure. I feel a bit bad about that, but I'm not sure how to keep up with that. We'll see. It's still in the branch. I won't remove it, so it's still there. So otherwise, the bug of the week. I don't know if it's the week really, but I wanted to mention a fun bug that I'm struggling with, and that's the 0-byte file transfer thing. I have it as a issue on GitHub. It's actually issue 382. When we transfer data in curl, the command line tool here, not the library, because the library is another matter. But in the command line tool, we never created any file until data arrives. So you would say, get this file, store it here. But it would only open the file at the first time when the first byte arrived, and then it would write all the bytes that arrived. But if no bytes ever arrived, it wouldn't ever open the file, which was a bit surprising to some users that were getting a file that is actually 0 bytes on the server, and you want to get it. I want to get that file, store it here, and it's 0 bytes there. Maybe it should create a 0-byte file here. Makes sense to me. So we fixed that in 7.42, I think. Fixed. So that was nice, and then it turned out that we broke that in one aspect, that if you did it time conditional request, like if this is new, then get this file. We always created a 0-byte file, which was wrong, and we fixed that bug, I believe, in 43. And now it turns out that if users are using their own sort of, since we've had this don't create any file if it's 0 bytes for such a long time, people have created scripts that sort of depend on this undocumented behavior. So for example, I had a long discussion with a guy who made his own custom headers. So he said he sent if modified blah blah or if match blah 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 in this file, and he expected that. So if the server, if it matches, it's or doesn't match, it doesn't matter. It sends back a 304 HTTP response with no content. So in his script, of course, he wouldn't get a file stored, and he would move on. And if it didn't match, it would get content, and it would get a file stored. So his script would find a file, and it'll be fine. But now it'll always create a 0-byte file, even for things like 304s or 404s or whatever. A change in behavior. Yes, from an undocumented to now a documented, but still a change in behavior that surprise users. So I'm really struggling on how to fix this in a way that possibly keep the old behavior but still allow the new. I don't know. It's really tough. Since I'm running really long again, as usual, I'm going to try to keep it no more, but I'm going to round off with a final, just one curl option of the week, since I need to cram in some options too. And this week I'm going to mention the --trace option, which is also available as a --trace ASCII option. And you provide a file name after that, as in --trace logfile.txt or --trace ASCII logfile.txt. And that just makes curl output a really verbose trace of what it is doing. What all data it sends, all data it receives, and all those extra verbose informational text, they're all logged to that file. That's really the most verbose, the most detailed logging you can use with curl, and that's usually very good if you're looking for protocol things. If you want to, in the very common case when you're trying to make something automated, like you want to automate HTTP and you want to make it run exactly like your browser, and then you can run the browser's built-in HTTP watching tools and see, whoa, exactly what did the browser send and what did the browser receive. And then you can compare this with these trace outputs from curl. Exactly what did curl send, exactly what did curl receive, and then you match them and you modify your scripts and headers and exactly so that become more and more similar, and then wham, it'll work in the end. I'm done for this week. This is Daniel Weekly 39. I'm going to make an effort to get back on the weekly schedule. So if you're approving of this, so please comment anything, ask me anything, say something, or don't, whatever. See you later. Bye.